Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butter beer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Sam Williams.
I'm Irvin Cateman.
And I'm Aurelia Lieb. And I'm very delighted to introduce our special guest, especially to those people who may have listened to the first episodes of Alohomora. You should know our special guest today, which is Noah Freed. Hi, Noah.
Welcome, Noah.
Hey.
Hi, Noah.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be back.
When's the last time you talked about Harry Potter? Like on a podcast?
With friends? On a podcast? 3 years? Maybe 4.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
But it's like riding a bike, right? You're just going to dive right back in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, reading the chapter for today just brought everything flooding back. And, I hope I can contribute wise insights. I don't think I've lost all of my knowledge, but I'm still a little rough. So bear with me, guys.
Fair enough.
Do you just want to remind our listeners who may not know you from Alohomora about your Hogwarts house, how you joined the Harry Potter fandom, your favorite book, your favorite character, if you have those?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Noah Freed. I'm a Hufflepuff.
Hi.
I love to find things as well. But yeah, I actually started interning at MuggleNet when I was 17, my senior year of high school, which must have been about 2007. And I was working on the fan art section and on editorials. And I was working with Irvin in the editorial section. And we launched the Three Broomsticks blog together back when he was writing controversial essays. I believe he still is, but that was really the beginning of breaking into that world. And then we started Alohomora in, I believe it was 2012. And there was great reception to that, especially because the books had ended, the last movie had ended, and everybody was very, very depressed. So that podcast really kind of started things anew, and we were rereading the chapters. And I'm glad to see that has continued. It sounds like Alohomora has been on for like a decade, which is cool and impressive. And it's kind of wild that I had the idea for that podcast when I was sitting on the ground, very buzzed at a house party in Italy when Prisoner of Azkaban was on, But, it was like a light just switched on in my brain, and I'm like, this is happening. I see it happening, and it happened. And, we're talking today, because Alohomora to some extent brought us here.
Yeah.
I'm happy that show's going. I'm happy that this show is going, and I have a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't invited me to, start a MuggleNet column back in 2011, we wouldn't have the Three Broomsticks at MuggleNet, and we wouldn't have the Three Broomsticks pod. So really, it's all thanks to you. We're here.
Well, thank you back. It's been great. A lot of love, and I love the series. Even for whatever is kind of out there in the world right now about it and about her, she who must not be named. But I guess we can say her name too, J.K. Rowling. I feel okay about that.
Great. So this episode, since, discussing chapters of the Harry Potter books is what Noah's all about, for episode number 4, we've gathered to discuss the third chapter in the Harry Potter series, The Letters from No One, which is chapter 3 of Sorcerer's Stone. This is going to be part of our 2023 project to analyze the third chapter in each book. And I think that's going to be really fun to put them all together. So, as always, listeners, we encourage you to read the chapter before listening to the podcast. And, once you've done that, we'll wait. Come on back and we can get into it. But before we start the chapter discussion, we actually want to raise a toast to the commenters on our website. Listeners, after you listen to the podcast, we would love to hear your thoughts over on our website at threebroomstickspod.com. And from now on, we're just going to take a few minutes every episode to highlight some of the best comments on an earlier episode. So here, we're going to offer a toast to the comments on episode 1, which, was our debut where we all talked about our favorite characters. And so we raise our glass to commenter Lori Kim, who said, About Oreo's discussion of why McGonagall doesn't take a more active role sometimes. I think we see the answer in Order of the Phoenix when Fudge and the Aurors are trying to take Dumbledore into custody. McGonagall says she's going to fight them too, and Dumbledore tells her not to, saying Hogwarts needs you. We know he always liked to keep Hogwarts under competent protection when he was gone. He wouldn't have been able to focus otherwise. She was too valuable to him. I think he couldn't risk her. So I thought this was a great comment because, well, I just always want to talk about Dumbledore. And his relationship with McGonagall is fantastic. Like, Dumbledore is not great at delegating, but this is one of the few instances where he will, like, cheerfully delegate all the running of things at Hogwarts to McGonagall, as we've discussed. And I just love that, like, he can, you know, trust her, and he's like, okay, good, that's, like, one thing off my plate. Now I can focus on, you know, saving the rest of the wizarding world.
I also think that there's something mentioned in the auxiliary information, although who knows if it's canon now, but, you know, before we had McGonagall in the Crimes of Grindelwald, there was this little short informational packet that Rowling had put out where McGonagall is said to have been the one person Dumbledore really wanted to stay away, specifically for the reason that Laurie Kim is discussing, which is Hogwarts needs somebody as well. So McGonagall, although lightly active in the Order of the Phoenix, is not necessarily permanently part of it because she is the safeguard for Dumbledore's actual job. Yeah,
the thing that, like, he's paid to do. Yeah, that one. I think we also see it, right? Because later in Order of the Phoenix, there's this great moment when Harry, you know, has the dream about Sirius and he, like, desperately wants to, like, tell someone. And he's like, but Dumbledore's gone and Hagrid's gone. And so he, like, runs to the hospital wing to see McGonagall because he's like, you know, in a pinch, always go to McGonagall. And when Madame Pomfrey is like, he's not there, Harry's just, like, at a total loss. He's like, but McGonagall's always there, like, rigidly, inflexibly, like, there. And it's just such a, like, you know, mind for him, because, yeah, like, McGonagall is always at Hogwarts holding the fort.
I do wonder if she sometimes feels that she could be doing more for the Order of the Phoenix, and that she would potentially like to do more of the fighting, but then obviously understands that there's another role she needs to do at the school. I mean, even in, like, Deathly Hallows, we see it, all the teachers stay behind to help protect the students from you know, Snape as a headmaster and the Carrows.
Yeah. McGonagall's great. Love her. So yeah, thanks, Laurie, for that great comment. And thanks to all the listeners who are, you know, chiming in on the website and starting the discussion. We hope to keep hearing from all of you. And now, let's get into the letters from no one. So, what happens in this chapter?
There's a lot of mail.
It began with a letter. It actually doesn't begin with a letter. It begins with child abuse, and I actually think it'll be interesting to see in the near future if the early Harry Potter books will be sold with trigger warnings typed up right before chapter 1, because, oh boy, do the Dursleys get up to some crazy things. So Harry's finally freed after 30-ish days locked in a cupboard, and while Sunny D advocates might be hammering for Harry to try their product, millions of the Sunverse are thrilled with how young Harry looks. Dudley has been accepted to Smeltings, a place that encourages young boys to thwack each other with sticks. Harry gets some sweet burns in before breakfast, while Dudley nobbles around in his new knickerbockers, weighing in more than Patrick Ewing that year, which is hilarious for basketball fans and just nobody else. But there's a pretty cool thing going on today, my friends. Harry James Toxin Potter has picked up a bill for Uncle Vernon to open. To be very real, it is sad that Harry has received his first ever piece of mail, but it is nice that Aunt Marge is breaking a toilet bowl somewhere in the Isle of Wight. Vernon and Petunia won't let Harry open his letters, and Vernon slowly goes mad in the process of playing defense. Harry infuriatingly hasn't developed any of the seeker skills that will pop up in 2 months and can't manage to sneak one into his cupboard. But this isn't the end of the world because, A, Harry gets a free upgrade in Hotel de la Dursley. 2, Dudley bursts into flame because of it. 3, the whole family gets to go on a nice vacation to Azkaban adjacent. And 4, there's even a canon show leading up to Harry's birthday. And that's what happened in chapter 3.
how I've missed your summaries.
Hey, you've turned it into an art form. You really have.
Yeah, I think it was the first time that it clocked for me that it is probably about a month that Harry's locked up in his cupboard. Because, how much do we know about Dudley's birthday in canon material? Not that much, but apparently it's June 23rd. And I know summer holidays in Britain typically start around the 20th to the 25th July.
Whoa. What do you mean 20th to 25th of July for summer holidays? That is so late. Like, you can't have children in school in July. It's cruel and unusual.
I think it's because we have shorter summer holidays. I know it's the same where I'm from in Germany. We also start probably even after the 25th. And then we have 6 weeks of school summer holidays. But then, we have...
That's it?
Yeah. But we have there's half terms. So there's 3 additional weeks in between. And then there's 2 weeks for Christmas, 2 weeks for Easter. So, there's just more smaller breaks in between, I guess.
I am shocked and appalled.
But yeah, it can be a bit hard to sit in 30-degree weather in a classroom.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, so...
A lot, but because here we have to sit in 30-degree weather in the classroom in June and September, and that's bad enough.
Yeah.
But in July?
That's again, I just wonder if we're getting trigger warnings here about all the things. The 30-degree weather.
Yes, I need a trigger warning for the lack of summer holidays.
I will say that just reading the chapter again just made me realize how bad of a time he had, whatever psychological damage he had living with the Dursleys. And, I remember giving him a hard time. We give him a hard time for freaking out in the books, whether it's, something Draco's doing or, Sirius Black. He gets so paranoid, he gets cranky at times, but he's been damaged. I feel like I haven't really, we have to kind of realize that as readers that, give him more leeway because he went through, utter crap, really, really bad stuff.
Noah, I had the same exact reflection in this chapter, and we'll get to it a little bit about how the Dursleys suffocate his curiosity and what that leads to later on in life. But it is remarkable to see just how much torture Harry goes through and how often, because I think a lot of readers don't think about the beginning of Sorcerer's Stone that often or Harry's time at the Dursleys, because it is, after this book, pretty short proportionally as we go along. But it is remarkable to see how often we do not consider the abuse for 11 straight years or 10 straight years that Harry puts up with before even going to one of the best schools in the world and realizing he's the most famous boy and an awesome athlete.
Yeah, which doesn't quite balance it either. That doesn't exactly make things easier.
No, not at all.
Same thoughts. Yeah.
And I know for me at least, these first few chapters, the nostalgia is so strong. I opened the book and immediately the John Williams score starts playing and I was like, oh, baby Harry. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm just so caught up in it's Harry Potter that I don't reflect on it as much on how seriously messed up some of the things being described are.
Yeah. I think I remember it may have even been early episodes of Alohomora when there was a discussion about the moment where Petunia uses a frying pan and tries to hit Harry with it. Yeah. And there was the whole, how much abuse did Harry have at the Dursleys? But locking a child up for a month in a cupboard, that feels even worse to me.
Especially given all the spiders in there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, what did they tell the school? And do they not have to provide a doctor's notice if a child has, is not going to school for a month?
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that a truancy officer would come by at some point and be like, hey, where is he? Show me his living circumstances. And then the Dursleys get arrested and go away.
Yeah.
Honestly, that should be the end of the series is, truancy, Harry Potter and the truancy plan.
But I mean, I know, at least for me, the last, week or two of the school year, half the kids didn't show up, and, the teachers were like, why are any of you here? Go, be outside. I don't want to see you right now.
What do you mean you just didn't show up?
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 weeks of classes, kids just didn't show up. Like, they got a head start on summer holidays or whatever.
That's
I think it's
illegal.
yeah, it technically is.
That's literally illegal, at least here.
It is
Wait,
technically in
what
most
do you mean
states
it's
as well.
illegal? Are parents not allowed to take their kids out of school for a holiday?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's school. Otherwise, you can start not caring about everything.
U.S. laws are a little different on it. You can get an excused absence, but if you just stop showing up and your parents don't excuse you, it is technically illegal.
No, but I'm saying if your parents excuse you, if your parents like write a note being like, "Yo, we're going to Disney World,"
I think in
alone.
all states that's legal. Yeah.
Yeah, it would not be allowed.
I think I missed 20% of high school.
I think Aurelia, how do you know how a lot of European schools end their year? Because in the States, when you get to high school, it's finals week. And so, like, after you're done with your finals, you pretty much don't have to come to school anyways.
Yeah, but those are a lot earlier. So A-levels are usually in, like, April.
Okay.
And then you have to, like, do an oral exam in, like, June. And then after that, you are done and you don't have to come anymore.
Okay, so it's a little bit like how the OWLs work, where they're way earlier in the year and then you kind of just futz around. Nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyways, this is all before Harry goes to school.
Which he's already very excited for. So even before knowing about Hogwarts, he's excited that he's going to go to another school than Dudley. So he's going to have a Dudley-free experience of a school year. And, you know, it does happen for him, just not quite as Harry imagines it at that point in time.
It's amazing how much of a victory this already feels like in the book. Because, like, you get 2 and a bit straight chapters of just... Well, I guess you get the first chapter is Harry arriving, but that whole second chapter is showing how awful Harry's situation is. And so to be away from Dudley, who's already been made out to be this huge bully, both metaphorically and literally, to get these, like, just 3 chapters in to get this victory for Harry of, oh my gosh, he's going to get away. That's so great. Is pretty effective writing, even though this is probably the first couple chapters here are the most inconsistently written of the whole series.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned that a lot, like, in every writing workshop ever, is how, like, you need to build up sympathy for your protagonist from the top, and, like, Joe does such a good job, like, in a great economy of chapters of the, like, hey, so, like, here's this kid, and look how much his life sucks. There, aren't you on his side now? Which, yes, we are.
Yeah. This is also a chapter where we hear quite a lot about Mrs. Figg, which I forgot. I mean, I knew we knew about her from, like, the beginning, but I think she's mentioned, like, 3 different times in this chapter. So I was always sort of wondering how early on do we think the importance that she's going to play later in the books was planned?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I had a weird theory.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
There was that moment where she got angry with one of her cats. What if it was Mrs. McGonagall? What if she had a fight with Mrs. McGonagall the cat? It's like, why else have that in there?
Do you think the whole thing that she has so many cats is just a disguise so McGonagall can just drop in and also spy on Harry?
Okay.
Yes! So, oh my god. I need, like, an odd couple sitcom of, like, Mrs. Figg and McGonagall living together and spying on the Dursleys.
Absolutely. Now, my headcanon on this is, so in the auxiliary information, there's a whole breakdown about how you become an animagus. And if you do it improperly, you can get permanently stuck as your animal. So my theory is Dumbledore is just like, Mrs. Figg is a cat person, and so anytime somebody fails being an animagus as a student at Hogwarts and they're a cat, he just drops them off to Figg. And it's like a little refugee for these human animagus people. And so McGonagall comes and tends to them every once in a while. And that would fit in perfectly with your theory, Noah.
And they just happen to be spies.
Yeah.
Like Charlie
Well, no, they
Sanders.
don't happen to be spies. They get recruited to be spies. Dumbledore's like, you're a failed animagus? So we can provide you with shelter and a loving home and bowls of milk, but in return, you have to spy on this Harry Potter kid.
Yes.
It's Sherlock Holmes's band of street urchins, miscreants, and crackheads, except
yes.
Arabella Figg Holmes' cats.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Lovely.
Would they have to be secret keepers?
I don't think so if all you can do is mew. I don't think Voldemort's going to learn gobbledygook for the most part, and then definitely not cat.
No.
But if a cat, like, conveyed the secret, you know, like, let's say the cat, like,
Types
you know, wrote things down in, like, you know, a bowl of milk, like, you know, just made the letters while someone was watching, does that count? Or do you have to, like, verbally convey the secret in a human tongue?
I just don't think that Voldemort spends any time thinking about animals.
Except for snakes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he thinks a lot about Nagini.
Yeah.
And a lot
That's the
about
one exception.
Salazar Jr., the little basilisk.
Yeah. I mean, Bellatrix, we literally see her killing a fox on the page, so.
That's true.
Again, she was just into fox hunting. It was legal back then.
Quick tangent aside, very quickly. We're all aware that there should be a lot more basilisks in the world, right? Like, it's very easy to make one.
Yeah, it's too easy to make one.
Cool. All right. The end of tangent. Back to cats.
I mean, it's easy to make one, but you have to be very deliberate about it. So, like, you know...
But how...
Unless you just, like, have chicken eggs lying around and a lot of toads hopping around and, like, you know, one just decides to sit on an egg.
But, Irvin, they have magic.
They can just
you
do
can
a
just
sticking
levitate
charm.
one on top and hit... Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly this toad has an eggshell attached to its bottom forever, but there's a basilisk who eats it when it first comes out anyways.
It sounds like it should be an elementary school science experiment.
Hey, all.
Maybe at Durmstrang it is. You know, for the first years, you make a basilisk.
You gotta kill it before it gets too big.
It's like
That's
your
gross.
final exam at Dark Arts.
Fight a
In your
basilisk.
Easiest final exam ever, then.
Are we saying that basilisk eyes work sort of the same way as infant mandrake screams? It's not fatal yet, then? Because that would be a lot of dead 11-year-olds in Durmstrang as soon as the basilisk asks.
Yeah, it's how they deal with the huge class size, because Durmstrang serves, like, all of Eastern Europe, so, like, you know, they don't have room for all those kids.
Okay. So they get super, I don't know, countryist about it, and, like, all the Romanians just are the people doing basilisk eggs.
Probably. Something to that effect.
Cool.
They actually start a year earlier in Durmstrang, and all of those students are in a separate place, and then only the ones who survived that year can go to the actual school.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Durmstrang initiation.
Durmstrang
You know-
makes Hunger Games and basilisks.
You know, if it's so easy, if Voldemort had showed up to the Battle of Hogwarts with an army of basilisks, it might have been a different game.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if there's, like, you know, we get all the Dementors started attacking and Giants started attacking and the Acromantula came and took Hagrid away and then I accidentally stepped on a basilisk baby because they take forever to grow.
Yeah, they're just, like, tiny, tiny basilisks, you know, like half a foot long, just crawling everywhere.
It'd be really easy to destroy the Horcrux at that point, though, because you just get a little baby basilisk and have it start biting everything. Hey, Nagini, come here.
Okay. That's true.
Wait, that's why Voldemort didn't do it,
Yeah.
because, you know, he didn't want his Horcruxes to be at risk. Wait, it all makes sense now.
Maybe he should have just had many snakes similar looking to Nagini, so no one knew which one to kill.
That would
That's
have been really
hilarious.
easy.
Okay, no, I did that in my fanfic version of book 7, which I wrote, you know, before Deathly Hallows was released. I 100% had Voldemort being like, you know what, I'm just going to make a Horcrux out of a rock, and then there are going to be all these other rocks, and no one will know which one it is. I think the solution was Harry and company just, like, took all of the rocks and just chucked them all into the Veil in the Department of Mysteries and was like, well, whichever one it is, it's a moot point now.
That is very funny.
I think making a Horcrux is probably like the Killing Curse. Like, you have to mean it. You know, I think you have to mean to imbue your soul into an object. And maybe he couldn't quite get it up for a rock, so to speak.
It also makes me question what happens to objects if they are thrown through the veil.
They go into non-being, which is to say, everything.
Well, anyway, shall we go back to the chapter now that we've solved the series 3 million times over?
Yeah. No, I want to circle back to the question you made, which is, like, was Mrs. Figg, like, always meant to be Mrs. Figg in Sorcerer's Stone? This actually came up. I run a Harry Potter meetup group here in New York that Noah will come to one day.
I will.
And we had our Sorcerer's Stone discussion a couple weeks back, and we talked a lot about that, of the, like, did Joe know, like, who Mrs. Figg was going to be all along, and she was like, aha, I'm dropping clues. Or was it a case when, like, she was writing Goblet of Fire, she was like, oh, that's a helpful name that I dropped in Sorcerer's Stone. Let's use that.
I think part of me wants to say Mrs. Figg was always going to be more, just because, you know, cats are also associated with witchcraft. So having a character that famously has a lot of cats could not only be, you know, that's the person the Dursleys think is weird, so it's like a punishment to have her watch Harry, but it's also sort of a, you know, a link possibly to the magical world anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I think Mrs. Figg as a squib, she probably felt, you know, I think growing up as a squib, you probably feel kind of useless anyway. So the idea of having a mission from Dumbledore directly to watch over Harry, which is like the most important task in the universe, she probably really liked. That's kind of an aside, but the idea that maybe she was, if JK knew that ahead of time, you know, I don't think there's strong evidence, honestly, to go either way on the first chapter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a non-answer, but that's what I think.
I feel similarly. I mean, I think what Noah's bringing up in terms of like hiring squibs is really interesting, because we see this with Filch as well. And I think people give Dumbledore a lot of crap for hiring, you know, a squib to clean Hogwarts when you can just do it by magic. But like, I think it's actually kind of nice that he wants to include the squib community at school. But to go back to your original question, I don't know that we ever get the answer to these in actuality. I'm a little jaded from George Lucas, the Star Wars fandom, always being like, yeah, this was always planned. Every single time, always planned. And then you like actually read what other people said, and they're like, oh, no. The first couple of scripts had Luke and Leia like actually hooking up, and they weren't siblings at all. And Luke's sister didn't arrive until the third movie. And like, you know, I think it's just people want to sound brilliant. And so I never know with any creator, anytime they're like, absolutely 100% planned from day one. I'm like, probably wasn't then.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because I do think Joe definitely, like, has a habit of, like, dropping names, so she, like, has something to go back to later on. Like, I don't think everything was 100% planned out from the word go. And I feel like Mrs. Figg is sort of, like, in that nebulous in-between space where, like, it could go either way.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I just thought that having so many cats could have, you know, she could have always been a link to the magical world that, you know, could have never been used again. But in this case, turns out it was useful later on.
Yeah.
She also, you just think about her name, Mrs. Figg. You know, that sounds very, very safe and inconspicuous. And maybe she wrote it that way, so inconspicuous because actually she was an important person.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Maybe. I mean, it's clear that there's some stuff that's planned out right from the beginning. Like like
the Sirius Black name drop, like I think that was very deliberate.
Right. And like Snape knowing or falling in love with Lily at an early age.
Yeah.
That all of that seems very straightforward, but I think it would be ridiculous and untrue, especially for the creative process, if the whole thing was mapped out meticulously from the beginning.
Agreed.
So it might have been like, hey, wow, I know with Harry being set up here and Dumbledore keeping a watch, like Mundungus is looking after him, but what if I had this plant? Like that seems plausible.
Yeah. No, I mean, we do know, you know, in earlier drafts of the first book, Dean was going to be part of the friendship group, and obviously that changed.
His name was Gary.
Sorry, Gary.
Yeah, Gary Thomas.
I always forget how sassy Harry is this early on. Like, we all know sassy Harry, but I think we tend to remember him in later books more. But his whole, I didn't realize it had to be so wet. I mean, that's just so good.
Yes.
Very.
Yeah. Which, that's in response to, like, Aunt Petunia dyeing old clothes of Dudley's to be, like, his uniform for his new school. And, yeah, that's a good perspective on it. Talk of Aunt Petunia dyeing Dudley's clothes for Harry. Josie Kearns over at the Harry Potter Companion had a really good point about this, where I'm just going to read what she wrote. If I had to pick one moment to define Harry's childhood with the Dursleys, I think it would be the one he stumbles across in this chapter, Aunt Petunia dyeing Dudley's old clothes for Harry to wear at school. Almost every other mistreatment at the hands of the Dursleys can be explained by their simply not wanting to spend money on him or exert unnecessary effort on his behalf. But here, Petunia has purchased clothing dye, is spending time and energy on one pane of a project,
Right?
and is smelling and probably dyeing up her pristine kitchen. Surely it would be worth it for her to instead go buy some cheap gray clothes for Harry. Instead, she's actually going out of her way to make Harry's life more miserable. Whether she's jealous of her sister or scared of Harry or whatever else her motives might be, it's really despicable that she takes it this far.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but now that we've had this comment from Josie, I'm just like, okay, I can never not see it this way now.
Yeah.
I think there's also a vengeance factor. She wants to be special in a way. I mean, she wants to be normal, but she also, regrets that her sister was so special. And she sees Harry as, clearly special as well, or part of that kind of, part of that story. So giving him these gray, drab clothes that are basically nothing, feels like a little bit of a vengeance factor there.
Do we think it would have been worse if Harry looked more like his mom? I know, like, him looking so much like his dad gets him in trouble even more with Snape, but, like, do we think if he had more of the looks of his mom, Petunia would have been even more horrible to him?
I think he and Ginny wouldn't have ended up together.
That's also very true.
Ginny wouldn't date her own brothers. Versus Harry's perfectly happy to marry his mother.
Yep.
Or what if Harry was a girl?
I don't know. Ginny and him still might have ended up together if you read the fanfics.
Yeah, I think Ginny would be down either way.
I actually take this the viewpoint a little bit more positively on this moment with the gray clothes. So I mentioned this a little bit later down in the doc, but so they're on a one income household, the Dursleys, and
yeah,
they own a house in Surrey. As far as we know, there's been no mentions of them renting whatsoever. It seems like they have money. But it's still a one-income household, and it's very expensive in Surrey. And although Vernon is sort of higher up at the corporate structure, I wonder if Petunia feels like many stay-at-home mothers do, that part of their job is to save a lot of money. And so if it is actually true that you have to wear gray at this school, then what Petunia is going and doing is actually something kind, which, she's unwilling to buy. She's totally unwilling to buy Harry new clothes, which is unkind. But she is taking time out of her day and ruining her pristine kitchen to go and do something for Harry to make sure that he at least has the very, very base needs, which, I mean, maybe it's not kind at all. Maybe it's just her own sense of pride. But I do wonder, with the way that Petunia acts in Order of the Phoenix and then at the end of Deathly Hallows, it does make me wonder if Harry just misses fleeting moments of as kind as she feels like she can be with who she's married to.
But counterpoint, I don't think the school would let him attend if he wasn't wearing something approximating the uniform.
Yep.
Like, I don't think that was Petunia doing something for Harry. I think it's this is what I have to do for him to, go to this school and for child services not to come knocking. But, she is going out of her way to make him miserable. Because, again, if it was about saving money, Dudley would not be receiving 37 birthday presents, and they would not be trying to shop for a vacation home in Majorca, a year from now.
That's what I mean is she has to save money in some way, shape, or form. So perhaps this is her way of being well, I'm not going to buy him new clothes, but I am going to at least make sure he has stuff for his school, the basic necessities for his school.
I mean, I don't know how school uniforms were in the 90s, but at the moment you can only buy the school uniform at the school typically. It's not really buy something that is similar looking.
Yeah, true.
Not so much, because we had, like, a uniform-ish in elementary school where, like, you know, you had to wear a polo in, like, you know, blue, yellow, or white. So, like, you know, you didn't have to buy, like, anything official from the school, but you had to, like, buy this exact clothing at the store. So that's always sort of how I understood it.
I mean, the, like, secondary school that's, like, 2 streets over from here, they definitely all have the exact same clothes.
Yeah. Well, because also, like, this is a public school, right? So they wouldn't be, like, super snooty about, like, you know, buying the official uniform of the school or anything. Because, I don't know, at least I associate that more with, like, you know, private schools with lots of money that are trying to convey that they have lots of money.
I just think there's a difference between Britain and you know, there was no school for uniforms in Germany, so I definitely didn't have to deal with this. School uniforms are so common here. Pretty much every school has them. It's not a thing between... I'm not even sure if schools here exist that don't have school uniforms, to be fair.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of f***ed up things that the Dursleys do, the description of all the bedrooms in the Dursley house, I find so galling. And, like, first of all, Sam, like, you're talking rich. Like, they are rich if they have a 4-bedroom home and they own it.
No, I know.
Like,
yeah, that's true.
They are richy rich. But anyway, so out of the bedrooms, so Vernon and Petunia have a bedroom. Dudley has a bedroom. They have a bedroom for visitors, i.e. Aunt Marge. And they have an overflow bedroom for Dudley's stuff, yet Harry sleeps in the cupboard. And I was like, they have 2 spare bedrooms. Not one, 2 spare bedrooms. And the boy is sleeping in the cupboard. And, like, again, maybe this is, like, me as a New Yorker where I was like, if you have a bedroom, you're fancy, let alone if you have 4. Like, I'm in a studio apartment. But 2 spare bedrooms?
Yeah, in the suburbs of London. It's a lot. It's a lot of unused real estate.
And also, like, the one with Dudley's stuff, it's all broken stuff. Just throw it away.
It really is. It, like, literally is just broken stuff.
My thing is, why can't he keep his crap in the guest bedroom? Sorry, I'm really hung up on this.
I am also likewise confused by his by the Dursley's entire attitude towards their child. I mean, we hear it in Half-Blood Prince when Dumbledore's like, you know, all the abuse that you put on Harry is nothing compared to what you've done to this child. And Vernon's like, but us mistreat Dudders. What do you mean? And it's like, it's this, right? It's the selfishness. The fact that that Dudley gets to throw his tortoise through the greenhouse roof later on in the chapter and not have any repercussions is actually quite damaging.
Yeah.
He ran over a neighbor's dog with his toy tank or something.
Yeah.
I actually, I was working on this in a writing project, I was doing in January. It's a key difference between Draco and Dudley and, like, the 2 families. I think the Dursleys, for all that they're rich, are very, like, striving to be upper class. Like, they're clearly, like, working on it. Yeah. As opposed to the Malfoys who have, like, always had, like, infinite amounts of money. And what, like, striving upper class looks like means, like, our child will want for nothing. Like, everything he wants, he gets. Like, that's how we show that we have achieved it and we have done it. And so, like, their version of loving Dudley means buying Dudley absolutely all of the things. Like, sort of, whether he wants or needs them or not.
Yep.
Cause, like, Draco, like, for all that Draco is as spoiled as Dudley, Draco doesn't have the, like, you know, I want it, I get it, like, vibe. Like, think in Borgin and Burks, right? Where, Draco is like, can I have the shiny necklace? And Lucius is like, no, you can't have a cursed opal necklace. Like, shut up. Whereas I feel like the Dursleys would have been like, absolutely, we'll take the necklace and, like, the bloody playing cards and the Hand of Glory. We'll take it all for our Dudders.
Absolutely.
Also, R.I.P. the tortoise.
You know what's interesting?
Was that a real tortoise or was that a toy?
Well, no, it's a real tortoise.
No, it's a real living tortoise.
That's messed up. What the nice thing is, though, with that tortoise is there's a very real chance that tortoise still survives, just because of how hard shells are. And I'm sure there's wildlife biologists who are listening that were like, well, no, not in this particular English variety, blah, 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 blah. But there is a chance that tortoise survives. And so my headcanon is that tortoise has a very nice 15-minute short film in black and white where it boards a boat and ends up in the same tropical spot that Sirius ends up, and they get a little time together before Sirius departs to go back to England.
Yes. Can we please, like, get a fanfic of, like, the tortoise's adventures, like, getting the hell away from the Dursleys?
With a little lightning bolt-shaped scar on its head from being thrown through the roof.
Yes, and a perfect map of the London Underground on one of his legs.
And then eventually it strangles Dudley to death because it's Voldemort.
I think the tortoise is going to be very good friends with the boa constrictor. I think the boa constrictor is like, hey, you want to go to South America with me? And the tortoise is like, hell yeah, let's go. And they just become best buddies.
Yeah. You know what's... Okay, so going back just a little bit, throughout this whole chapter, just speaking of all the damages that they do, right? Like, Dudley has a lot of damage on him because he's able to treat living animals so poorly, right? Just gives away his parrot for an air rifle that gets broken.
Well, and living people so poorly.
Well, yeah. And the killing animals at a young age, or treating them with such discontent is like the first signs of being a serial killer. So good that Dudley eventually finds boxing. But it's really interesting here too, the abuse that they're putting on Harry by not letting him access his curiosity. And this is the reflection that I was having earlier, which is Harry isn't allowed to be curious in the Dursley household. He's not allowed to ask questions. We hear this constantly. It's their one rule. No asking questions. And that is really damaging to early childhood development. Because if you are not allowed to explore your surrounding areas, you are a new being, right? Everything is new to you. And so not being able to go and ask, hey, what's this gray stuff floating in a tub? He's immediately left with the question, like, don't ask questions. And it's crazy cruel to not do that. And so it's interesting how later on we see Harry not really pursue his curiosity, right? Hermione, also from the Muggle world, comes in super curious about everything, goes and pursues it. Now, she does it to a nth degree, right? It's a large amount. I'm not saying that Harry would have been like that, but what we don't see is Harry pursue his curiosity. Instead, he only ever pursues curiosity or pursues the unknown when he has a hunch that it might be useful. So it's got to be something that is useful to him rather than just curiosity for curiosity's sake. And it's interesting that while they weren't able to snuff the magic out, they were able to snuff his curiosity out.
That's an interesting idea and also very sad. Yeah, not sure. But I do think it's wild that he turns out as well adjusted as he does, or is even able to be, ironic and, like that with Petunia. I think if you grow up from like a toddler in that atmosphere, he could have just been a total submissive. He could have been just total like head down, like an emotional mess. But somehow he manages to be like, to go up against them just like his parents would have. And JK seems to be making some kind of an argument for, I guess, like genetics, versus environment. Like your environment can be terrible, but you can inherit these instincts from your parents.
The question of like nature versus nurture and like which one like the books advocate for like has been discussed in countless essays. I think the Harry Potter books come down more or less on the side of nature. Yeah. Just because, you look at Harry, you look at Draco even, and yeah, I think they 100% turned out differently than you would expect purely from the nurture they had in their environment.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of wonder, and I know, this is a complete what if, but I'm correct in saying Dudley is also going to boarding school, right? Smeltings is a boarding school.
Yeah.
So if Harry, in a world where Harry doesn't go to Hogwarts, he would have still been in Little Whinging going to the local school, while Dudley would mostly be away.
Wait, do we know that Smeltings is a boarding school?
I think Rowling confirmed it in an interview at some point, but that's just off the top of my head. I don't know.
Let me check the lexicon, because
I also thought because, when he starts boxing, there's this whole, it's all like happening while he's at school. and like the Dursleys seem to be slightly removed from it all.
Yeah. Per the lexicon, there's nothing about whether it's a boarding school or not.
All right. Well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. And even the Harry Potter wiki, which, like, not that you ever trust what they say, they also have nothing about boarding school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just sort of thought, reading between the lines, that Dudley was also away for most of the year. I may be wrong, but let's assume that's the case, and let's assume Harry doesn't go to Hogwarts, and he still stays in the cupboard under the stairs, and just is left there with just Petunia and Vernon. Like, what would that look like for him? And also, at what point is he too big for the cupboard, and he has to be moved out of it anyway?
Yeah, it's a great question.
I mean, I think they would just, like, keep him in the cupboard till he moved out. Like, you know, if he was too lanky, he would just, like, you know, sleep with his legs folded. I don't think they would factor in his size in when to move him out.
One would hope.
One would hope, but I don't have a lot of faith in them after this chapter.
That's true.
Like, I feel like the prior chapter establishes how hard his life is. This chapter establishes how the Dursleys go out of their way to make his life hard.
Yeah. Very true.
He probably would have just dropped out of school and ran away at some point.
Yeah. I'm curious, so, Harry thinks that, like, if he shows up at school in, like, you know, the dyed rags that Petunia's prepping, that, like, he'll be a pariah and everything. And do you agree with that? Like, admittedly, we know nothing about Stonewall High, but Harry seems fairly charismatic and he's clearly a good guy. So, like, I think, you know, even if, like, you know, his uniform didn't make a good first impression, I think once he was away from Dudley and all the people who wouldn't be friends with him because they were afraid of Dudley, I think Harry might have actually made friends at Stonewall, sort of against his expectations.
I agree.
Yeah, I can see that.
Has that fan fiction ever been written?
Oh, I'm sure.
About his life there? Like, I've never heard of that before.
I assume yes. Like, if the question is, has that fanfiction been written? The answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, okay, so back to Dudley and the tortoise. I just want to say, like, Dudley's dedication to throwing a tantrum is, I mean, impressive seems like the wrong word, but, like, perversely impressive. Because, and I quote, he'd screamed, whacked his father with his smelting stick, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother, and thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still didn't have his room back. And I was like, that is dedication right there.
Absolutely.
Also shows how easy it is for him usually to get his way.
Yeah. Like, I just, like, reminded of, like, one of my mother's favorite sayings, which is, Твою энергию к мирным целям, which is, like, if you'd only direct your energy towards worldlier goals. In my mother's case, said worldly goal is, you know, making lots of money and not podcasting about Harry Potter, but, like, the phrase is a good one.
Yeah.
When Harry ends up in Dudley's room and we get, like, the litany of broken things that are there, you know, the poor tortoise, the smashed this, the broken that, the, like, TV he put his foot through. There's also this line that the books are the only things that looked as though they'd never been touched. And I just want to shout out an amazing essay by David Martin, who, listeners may know from the, Hogwarts Tournament of Houses nonsense on HBO Max. He was one of the winners. But he wrote an essay, talking about the role of books in the Harry Potter series, where basically, in the Harry Potter series, good people read books, bad people don't. It's like a very clear dichotomy, where, like, we only ever see good guys using books and the bad guys only ever use people instead.
Well,
so we'll link the essay in the show notes. But I feel like this case of Dudley's unread books is sort of the first indicator of what would become that dichotomy.
Fascinating.
That is interesting. I was just thinking Lockhart, though. You know, he does write books. He doesn't read books.
That's a good point. He writes them.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we don't see Lockhart reading books.
Got it.
And is he really that bad of a guy?
The people who write books in the Harry Potter series are usually awful.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Rita Skeeter.
Lockhart, Rita Skeeter. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Joe does not have a terribly high opinion of all the writers in the world.
Bathilda Bagshot, who turns out to be a snake.
Oh, okay, that's not on her.
Very low opinion.
Libatious Borage, who doesn't know his potions.
Does a diary count as books?
Yes. See, all the writers in the Harry Potter series are terrible.
Always.
With that said, the letters.
Finally, to the letters.
Right. So, I'm sure we've all had this thought, or at least it's, you know, whenever I go visit back this chapter, I'm like, why didn't Harry just, like, you know, hit the letter in his, like, cupboard or, like, read it in the hall before walking back in? Surely he must have realized he wouldn't get to keep something.
It doesn't occur in the moment. Like, because he never had mail to be taken away, I think it just, like, didn't register for him that, like, this would be a thing he needs to secret.
Yeah.
But, like, yes, like, hindsight is 20/20, but it's so frustrating. Like, every time I read this, I was like, read the damn letter!
No, I think you're right. That was my thought, too.
Yeah.
He was stunned.
And, like, in fairness to Harry, Dudley makes the exact same mistake. Because, like, the second day when Dudley goes to get the mail, he sees it and he immediately hollers, oh my god, there's another letter, rather than just reading it.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't... On my first read, I remember not feeling like, oh my gosh, he's got to open these letters. He's got to do it. It is amazing once we get to the total number of letters that he doesn't manage to sneak one away, though. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wee bit implausible.
yeah, for real.
Yeah.
A wee bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Next question. Why are Hogwarts letters addressed including the bedroom? Or is this just something that, you know, McGonagall is, you know, feeling particularly sassy?
So I love that you asked this question because, like, I never thought about it much, but I feel like the sense of humor with the letters is much more Dumbledorian than McGonagall's. Like, the whole, I mean, like, you know, putting the letters in the eggs, like, you know, the letters, like, shoved in every nook and cranny when the mail slots closed. Like, we've seen how Dumbledore enjoys needling people he doesn't like, and I feel like this is much more Dumbledore's shtick.
Yeah.
Also, now that you say that, if McGonagall knew Harry was kept in a cupboard, she would have, like, barged down the door and been like, I'm taking this child now.
Right, exactly. McGonagall comes in guns blazing, whereas Dumbledore's like, I'm watching you.
Whereas Dumbledore's like, yeah, he can sleep in a cupboard as long, you know, as long as he's alive.
I mean, Dumbledore's like, listen, he slept there 10 years. What's another week?
So stupid.
Also, wait, no. Dumbledore's not okay with the cupboard. That's why the letter is addressed to him in the cupboard, so they move him. Dumbledore was just trying to get Harry an upgrade in the house.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Took
Why not?
him 10 years to give him the upgrade.
Yeah, for real.
He's a busy man, okay?
How does he know about that, though?
I think he just, like, is spying on the house, like, to be...
I mean,
Yeah.
we decided earlier that all the cats of Mrs. Figgs are the spies, so...
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, I'm sure it was, you know, Tufty who told Dumbledore, he's like, just so you know, like, the kid's in the cupboard.
Dumbledore's like, there, it's fine.
Because, like, you wouldn't even need to, like, do some fancy spying. Like, you literally stroll up to the house at night, do hominum revelio, and it's like, wait, why is there a kid in the cupboard?
Yeah.
Hold on.
That's probably why Harry got chocolate cake, because Dumbledore was like at Mrs. Figgs being like, so I'm going to start sending letters. I'm going to address it to the cupboard to freak the Dursleys out. And she's like, what? The kid's in the cupboard? Oh, if he comes over next, I'll be nice to him. Here's chocolate cake.
No, I think it's Mrs. Figg celebrating, okay? I think Mrs. Figg is like, yes, the kid is blowing this popsicle stand. He doesn't have to deal with the Dursleys. Life is good. Let's have chocolate cake.
Okay.
It's possible.
I think she's just really hyped.
Super hyped.
Also, so much more free time for her if Harry spends the majority of the year not in Little Windy.
Very true.
Exactly.
She's like, I can finally pick up some hobbies.
I have one more question about this letter thing. So there's a line saying that Harry didn't belong to the library, so he never even got rude notes asking for books back. rude notes. I'm sorry, Joe Rowling.
Yeah, for real.
Between this line and Irma Pince, what librarian hurt you as a child?
For real.
Like, librarians are lovely people. I like them. Their notes aren't rude. Leave librarians alone.
I think it came out in a newspaper clipping at one point that she had amassed like 400 pounds of late fees at university. So that's probably got a lot to do with this.
Oh, okay. Mystery solved. Because, yeah, like, you know, Joe's vendetta against librarians is only matched by her vendetta against accountants.
Yep.
Which, not gonna lie, I take a little personal.
I mean, it sounds like she could have just returned those books.
And paid $400?
Well, she could have just returned those books on time and not, you know,
be
in this predicament.
Listen, you find yourself in these predicaments. It happens, okay? I myself had a very messy breakup with the Brooklyn Public Library.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure I still owe them a lot of money, so...
You know, Aurelia, I would say that there seem to be 2 countries in the entire planet that are really good at timeliness, and you just happen to be from one of them.
Which was stressing Irving a little bit when we were hanging out in London together.
We gotta go now.
Right, because we're like, oh, we're gonna meet at 7 o'clock, and like, you know, sort of at 6:58, she's like, I'm here. And I was like, no, I said 7 o'clock. I'll be there in 15 minutes. So Aurelia, in Germany, is the late fee for library books like, you know, 30 euros a day because just like no one would ever return something late?
I mean, I don't know because I never returned a book
you
late.
wouldn't know.
It's just not a thing that's ever happened to me.
That's hilarious.
In fairness, I wouldn't have been late with my book with the Brooklyn Public Library if they had ever been open to return the book. But they're like, we're open like 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. 4 days a week. And I was like, I have school. We have lives.
Do they not have like one of those like letterboxes where you could return the books?
No, they didn't. And so I was like, well, if you don't want the book back, fine, I'll keep it.
They're like, we do actually want the book back, though.
Yeah. No, so I never did return it. Mind you, it wasn't a book I liked. I didn't want to keep it. So I ended up selling it on eBay for like $3.
Amazing.
Anyway.
Who bought it on eBay? The Brooklyn Library?
I doubt it.
I wish.
I would have really appreciated if they had.
It's really interesting to see all the Dursleys' reactions because they're like so over the top comical, like the description of them. It's just like all the like, you know, Vernon goes from red to green to white. It's just like, okay.
Yeah. No, that's great. His face is like a traffic light. It went from red to green and then just kept going to white. It's one of my favorite like descriptors that Joe uses is people's faces changing color with their emotions.
Yeah.
Like it never fails to crack me up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also sort of appreciates Vernon's whole like, how are we going to deal with this? And he's just like, we'll just ignore it. It'll go away. I was like, yeah, that's how I deal with stuff.
I mean, in fairness, that is how I deal with stuff.
And even Petunia's like, I don't think that's going to work. And he's like, yeah, it's going to work. If we just don't write back, they'll give up. Sure.
Yeah. And Vernon's logic for that is their minds don't work the way ours do. Or wait, no, what's the exact quote you have it here? These people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like you and me. Truer words never spoken.
Still, though, it's a furious amount of letters that get to Harry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, sorry, just before we talk about the amount of letters, I love that Harry immediately goes into scheming mode. He's like, okay, this person now tried twice. They'll try again. I'm going to make a plan. I'll get to the letter before anyone else is. And like his plan is like, I'll go out on the street and like stop the postman before he even like comes near the house.
Right, at like 5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And like, surely the postman will have no questions about this boy on the street corner at 5 a.m. like waiting for
Can
letters.
I please have my mail, sir? He's Oliver.
Oh, yes, no, Harry is a sneaky boy, and I love it.
But like, can you imagine if he had made it outside and then he'd be like, why is there an owl with like a letter?
Yeah, it is amazing how much that plan would have backfired on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, we need to talk about the number of letters. So, first of all, the letters come 7 days in a row, because of course they do. It's Harry Potter. Like, 7. But the number of letters bugs me. So, the sequence of letters is 1 letter, then 2 letters, then 3 letters, then 12 letters, then 24 letters, then 30 or 40 letters, and then about 100 letters. What is the logic here? What is this sequence? This pattern makes no damn sense.
Is the answer just that there's no wizard math?
Yeah.
No! There needs to be a method to this madness. Like, I looked this up, okay? I put this sequence into the online encyclopedia of integer sequences, and even they have nothing for this. My math brain is exploding.
Come on, this is clearly ring theory.
Okay, how?
All right, yeah, how? Let's hear
I
it.
mean that ironically because I don't believe in ring theory. So, bring it out.
Like, it could be a doubling sequence in the latter half. Like, it could be 12 to 24 to 48 to 96. But the, like, 2 to 3 to 12, maybe it switches halfway through. Maybe it, like, starts as an arithmetic sequence and then becomes a geometric sequence. But this never fails to bug me. And I've read this book many times.
Yeah, I just wonder if it really just comes down to the fact that the author Rowling isn't just that tight on the numerical value in magic at this point, right? I mean, we get the 7 days, but that could just be like it takes a week, and she wants to make sure it leads up to Harry's birthday, because it certainly seems like a prime opportunity to get into the like. Arithmancy of it all, but it doesn't. And I think it's just really just like, all right, here's a letter. All right, here's a letter. Still haven't heard. Here's a couple more letters. All right, now we're going to sneak them in. Now we're going to really try and sneak them in. And then here's just, Harry, for the love of God, would you please grab one of these letters? Use some critical thinking skills.
Also, use your seeker skills that you have suddenly 2 months later.
That's what I was saying in the intro. Like, Harry has... it's like magic when he goes to Hogwarts. He just magically becomes a different person.
I will forever be fuming about this.
So the only thing I can come up with here, Irvin, for you is that 3 is on the 3rd day, and then on the 4th day it's 3 times 4, so it's 12.
Okay.
That's all I have. That was...
Yeah, no, like... Okay, I'm just gonna keep fuming. We can move on.
Yeah, so because their minds don't work, or their minds work in strange ways, Werner deduces then the next best thing to do is hammer up the mail slot and block everything. No one's get to leaving the house, so lockdown for the Dursleys.
Wait, no, like, I don't think they're locked down and not leaving the house. I just think Vernon assumes that if the mail slot is locked, then no mail can enter the house, clearly.
He also blocks the windows and doors.
Oh, right, wait, because first he blocks the mail slot, and then
Yeah.
they just get in, like, under the doors and through the windows, and then he locks everything. You're right.
Yeah. And then it's full lockdown.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Until we have no post on Sundays.
Yes.
Which makes me think, do owls, like, work any day of the week? Should owls have a lobby? Should they get paid more for weekends?
100% they need a
Yes.
lobby.
Yes, they should.
They really, really, really need a lobby. But here's the thing. When Hermione goes and works for the Department of Magical Creatures, I'm sure she ends up being a one-woman lobby for owls and house elves and everyone, where she just is, she's in the lobby waiting for Kingsley Shacklebolt to come down. And one of Kingsley's assistants comes over and is like, he won't talk to you today. Like, you need more support. And Hermione just is like, look at me. I am the lobby now.
Right. Do you know how many people I have wearing spew pins?
Right.
Okay? Don't make me change those pins to owls.
She has to be, like, globally hated in the ministry, you know, during those years. Because you know that she's just sticking up for every creature, as she should, but I don't think she had a lot of friends.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been talked about in auxiliary materials.
I don't know. I think Hermione got better at, like, you know, conveying her causes with the years. Like, you know, Goblet of Fire Hermione is very much the way a teenager would fight injustice. Like, I like to think that by the time she got to the ministry, she knew a bit more about winning people's hearts and minds.
Possibly.
Yeah. This is a whole other topic, but now I'm getting flashbacks to an Alohomora episode years ago where somebody was arguing that house elves like to be enslaved, or that Hermione shouldn't be doing what she was doing because maybe they liked that.
Gross.
Yes.
So, yeah, I know.
I agree with that.
No.
You agree with that?
Yes. The house elves are magical creatures who like serving people, so yes, Hermione is doing the wrong thing. Like, should she fight for better rights and better conditions for the house elves? Obviously. But trying to free them against their will? No, I think she is in the wrong.
Slavery is an abhorrent system. And that no matter if you have people in the system that think they're doing fine, the system needs to be abolished. Now, you can do that while also convincing the folks that they will be better off and be able to do what they like should they want to do it. But slavery is an immoral system that should be eradicated regardless of the consent of those within the system who have Stockholm Syndrome with the system.
Fair enough for humans, but these are magical beings.
They're sentient.
So it is literally they're sentient, yes, but it is in their inherent nature to serve people. Like, again, we've discussed this a million years ago about whether house elves were created to serve or whether they were just like hella enchanted to serve. But it's not as simple as just people are enslaved, they shouldn't be enslaved. Like, you would have to fundamentally change, like, what house elves are.
I think we're coming down into, like, macro systems, right? Where I firmly believe that slavery should not exist for any single individual shape or form. So, that's what it comes down to for me, regardless of sentience or willingness to serve or willingness to be in it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm on that side as well.
I think it's more down to, like, education, and obviously it's not going to be as of tomorrow, everything's different. It will take time and it'll be a gradual process. But it should never mean that we are okay with slavery.
They should be given a choice.
Yeah. You know? I mean, I don't think you can translate, like, our current values and, like, knowledge of our systems in the real world to something like house elves, because I don't think we have a good analog for
I think that's the
world.
point, right? Is that this is a really weird metaphor that's poorly explored in these books. It's one of my biggest criticisms is that this book slightly touches upon slavery and doesn't really have an authentic conversation with it. If you're going to comment on a system like that, you've got to give it the nuance that it's going to give. And what we get is an improper system in a weird way that makes a lot of people very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the only instance of that in this series.
Yeah.
Well, we got onto this conversation talking about owls and if they should have
but owls,
rights,
they absolutely do. In order to not
they take tips. They take tips.
Question,
right?
Are owls paid or are they also enslaved?
Yeah, I mean, right, do messenger pigeons, I think that there's always, like PETA has many big stances on that. That's a big lobbying animal rights group in the States. They have firm and fast beliefs about that. And, like, right, is room and board and safety away from being murdered enough for animals that can do a simple task but don't have higher brain functions for sentience? We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we do see that when literally a chapter on, or maybe 2 chapters on, Hagrid pays the owl that delivers the daily profit, but we don't know if that's for the daily profit or if that is for the owl.
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding was always that it's for the daily profit.
That's my understanding too. I mean, Harry doesn't pay Hedwig, right? He gives her a place to sleep and...
No.
food
only in
stuff.
bacon rinds.
What would owls buy?
And affection and love.
Which, like, listen, if people wanted to pay me in bacon, I wouldn't be mad.
I think the big difference there is level of sentience, and I don't know where the line people draw that on, but for me, house elves are sentient enough and owls are not.
So this is a cool connection that's never explicitly stated in the books, but when the Dursleys flee the letters, right, they end up at a hotel in Cokeworth, which is actually where Petunia and Lily are from. And that's so cool. So Jo actually addressed this on Pottermore in an article where she said, perhaps Uncle Vernon has a vague idea that Cokeworth is so distinctly unmagical the letters will not follow them there. He ought to have known better. After all, Petunia's sister Lily turned into a talented witch in Cokeworth. And like, the irony. It is delicious.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's also where Snape grew up. So it's not distinctly unmagical.
Yeah. If anything, it's distinctly magical for a rundown Muggle town.
Two magical folks. I also wonder if, is it Eveline or Irene Prince? Anyways.
Eileen.
Eileen Prince is alive at this time. And, or if Severus's father is alive at this time. Or if Severus has murdered both of them and didn't tell anyone. Because if so, it's possible that they might have caught a glimpse of Harry in the car.
Well, I don't think Tobias is alive, right? Because Snape has the house in Spinner's End, and I can't imagine Snape, like, living in that house if, like, you know, his dad were still there.
Yeah. I just wonder if at this point, because do we know exactly when Snape inherits that house?
No, presumably before Half-Blood Prince, and, like, presumably, like, a bit of time before Half-Blood Prince, because, you know, we don't see moving boxes when the Black Sisters are there.
Well, it is. They do have magic, so maybe moving boxes would have taken 6 seconds to unpack.
What I would give to have magic when I move.
It's called money and other people.
What I would give to have that either.
Yeah, no, same.
But yeah, I just would love to know what's going through Petunia's head when Vernon is driving to Cokeworth. Because she's just, like, silently in the car because Vernon's gone mad, and he's, like, driving in circles and then ends up in Cokeworth. And, like, she must be like, motherfucker, we end up back here. It's not gonna go well.
Yeah.
I mean, what is going through her head at this point? Because she must know that it's all futile. Like, there's no way this is going to work because she knows how powerful they are. And yet, at the same time, she just, you know, totally submits to whatever Vernon wants to do. Maybe that because that's just her behavior. But I imagine during this whole time, she's thinking, yeah, there's no chance. You know, they're going to get us.
I think you used the right word there, Noah. And Dudley even says Daddy's gone mad. I think both Dudley and Petunia are just, like, too stunned to even say anything.
Yeah. Well, and, like, Vernon has no idea, I think, that it's Cokeworth, because, like, Petunia met him, like, after she had left Cokeworth, so I think Vernon, like, legit doesn't realize that, like, they've gone back to Petunia's hometown.
I would get, that seems right for Vernon, right, to just be totally oblivious. His character is such a wonderful commentary on how weird the corporate world is, because he, like, isn't particularly that smart, nor does he have great social skills, but he's this big, mean dude, and so he rises to the top very quickly. But it feels like he right on the money for him to not understand or know where his wife grew up.
Yeah.
It may have been Petunia's choice to not share that too.
True.
I don't know if we know when her parents die, because if her parents were still in Cokeworth, that would probably be the only reason to go visit.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I think, like, Petunia probably, like, you know, doesn't want to look back on what happened in Cokeworth. So she's just, like, out of sight, out of mind, moving on.
Yeah.
She doesn't even remember that she grew up there.
Blocked it out of her memory. She's put all of it into the pensive and deleted the original one.
Yeah. So when Cokeworth doesn't work out for them, then they tried the hut on the rock. And Joe also wrote about this on Pottermore, which I actually really like this bit. She said, in an attempt to throw off the letters that arrive from Hogwarts on Harry's 11th birthday, Petunia and Vernon fall back on the old superstition that witches cannot cross water. As she had frequently seen Lily jump streams and run across stepping stones in their childhood, Petunia ought not to have been surprised when Hagrid had no difficulty making his way over the stormy sea to the hut on the rock. And, like, I always, like, I interpreted it as more of a, like, subconscious thing, where it's like, running water, that must be it. But yeah, I think it's hilarious that, like, they just fall back on that superstition, because it's
it really
so
is.
silly.
And also, like, this is Azkaban adjacent. This is... I'm pretty sure Azkaban's just over the other side. So that's why Hagrid is so excited to use magic to row away from it.
Yeah. Oh, so, like, you know, they just show up at the hut on the rock and there are, like, a few escaped convicts from Azkaban already there.
Yeah, it's serious. Barty Crouch Jr. just hamming it up.
Yeah, Barty Crouch Jr. is just, like,
cigars.
chilling in the hut on the rock.
Harry finally gets a puppy for his birthday.
Yep.
Aww.
That'd be sweet. Very, very sweet. Does it work like that? Could Sirius procreate with a dog and give Harry a puppy? Be like, this is my son, godson.
I think so.
I feel like we've entered the sphere of desk pick.
That's big. That's big.
Because, like, that's the way it works with werewolves. If you mate with a wolf while you are a werewolf, it creates, like, more sentient wolves.
Yes. But that's when two werewolves mate, right? So I think if...
Oh, yeah, true.
So I think if two Animagi mated, right? And then then I guess the baby might be a puppy.
Human? Or just an immediate Animagus, like you're born a Metamorph Margus. Maybe that's how Metamorph Margus are created.
Oh, like there were two people like became Metamorph Magi and procreated?
Well, no, I'm wondering, because we never find out how you're born. Like, it seems like it's a genetic thing, but I wonder if if you mate in Animagus form, you immediately create a human baby that can shift its features.
But isn't Tongue's dad a muggle?
Frick.
Nah.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
Aurelia, my theory destroyer.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just want to have fun.
I mean, it also it makes it the whole, just because I brought desk pick up, but like if you then turn an object into an animal and an animagus procreates with that animal, like what happens then?
Oh.
It all goes into nothingness. You break the laws of Magic God, and Merlin comes and Avada Kedavras you.
But
Wait, but going back, if two Animagi procreated and the like mom stayed in Animagus to give birth to a puppy, would that puppy just be a sentient puppy, or would it be an Animagus or a wizard?
some weird abomination of the three.
I need a flowchart.
Yeah. Right, like, pending on, like, when the procreation happens, when the birth happens, what happens in between. I feel like it could go a lot of different ways.
I guess it depends.
Next time on the 3 broomsticks.
When you change into an animal...
Just sounds of us arguing.
When you're an animagus and you change into an animal, how deep does the change go? You know, is it just changing your body, or is it changing your spirit?
No, it's a full transformation. And so the only difference between if you transfigure yourself into an animal versus if you are an animagus is that if people are transfigured, you have the mind of that animal. So Draco thinks in no terms but ferret terms. But if Draco's animagus form was a white ferret and he transformed into it, he would keep his human mind. So the transformation is complete except for that distinction.
Wow. Thank you. Didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all agree that Draco's animagus is a white ferret.
Oh, obviously.
100%.
No question.
It is from that point forward. I think, you know how your Patronus can change, therefore your animagus form can change?
I don't
That's 100%.
think it can. I don't think your animagus can change.
It's the Patronus.
It's up for debate. Because your Patronus and your animagus do line up, but in the
not necessarily,
information-
actually.
That is what it says in the Joe Rowling written auxiliary information on Animagus.
No, it's not, because I think it says there are so few people who do both that there isn't enough conclusive evidence.
Yes, but it's so far it is that they have seen correlation.
Correlation.
Not causation.
But not
only
necessarily a
correlation.
one-to-one.
Correct.
Like, I think, in fact, that could be a way for your Animagus and Patronus to diverge, is like your Patronus changes, but Animagus stays the same.
But yeah, and that was what I was on the way to saying, is that in that auxiliary information, they do say they haven't been able to study if your Patronus form, because that is so rare. But I'm hazarding a guess that from that point forward, Draco's Animagus form has to be a ferret.
I just think,
Simply because
I
it's
think Barty Crouch
so
Jr.
traumatic.
saw the inner ferret in Draco. I think his Patronus was always going to be a ferret, and Crouch just, like, had a feeling.
That's part of what Mad Eye Moody's eye does, is it sees what animal form you would take.
Yes! Oh my god, yes! It's just like, you know, in, what was it, Golden Compass, where you can, like, see their animal souls. Like,
Yeah.
Moody's eye can see a person's animal soul and transfigure them into that.
Just, he looks over at Voldemort. I'm a snake.
Yes.
I will be very interested if Voldemort's Patronus, which he would never be able to create, and his Animagus form would have been a basilisk. That feels right for Salazar Slytherin. And that's also terrifying.
I don't think you can have a basilisk Animagus. Like, Animagi all seem to be non-magical animals.
That's not true.
On Pottermore, you can get Hippogriff and Dragon.
Yeah.
Wait, for an Animagus?
Yeah.
Yep. No, for a Patronus. But again, that's coming back to this argument of does it meet up? And that's why a lot of people think, because Dumbledore's Patronus is a phoenix, and there's a sentence in McGonagall's little backstory where it's like Dumbledore taught her how to become an Animagus, so there are rumors that Dumbledore also is an Animagus, and then therefore there have been rumors from the fandom that Dumbledore's Animagus form is a phoenix, because that whole Dumbledore line, a phoenix comes to them when in need, and therefore it's in their blood that they are all phoenixes as well.
Well, first of all, those movies are nonsense. But I always understood that Animagi had to be non-magical animals, because otherwise it'd just be too overpowered. Like, you know, if someone could transform into a dragon, like, then we're in, you know, Sword in the Stone territory.
Yeah, also...
The snitch is too overpowered. Therefore, I think it's fine if Rowling... I think it tracks if Rowling makes an overpowered system.
No, because
somewhere else
the
in her
snitch
world.
is a flawed system designed by humans. Animagi is just inherent magic.
But magic is flawed constantly.
Yeah. I mean, it does, you know, if Dumbledore is a phoenix, let's entertain that for a little bit. If he then dies as a phoenix, phoenixes are reborn, but is he going to be reborn?
I think
No. As Joe said, he's dead. Dumbledore is dead as a Dumbledore nail.
I mean, he died in Dumbledore form. That's not what I'm questioning, but like if he were in a phoenix form and he died.
At the time of his death.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. He just missed the transformation.
That's a miscalculation on his part. Yeah.
He was like, Snape, we timed this. You were supposed to slow down how you said Avada Kedavra. You said it too quick.
Yeah.
Now they have to rely on my stupid portrait.
Yeah. Well, it's because, you know, Dumbledore was counting on Voldemort's Avada Kedavra.
Yeah, exactly.
And instead he gets Snape, who's like down to business. He's like, Avada Kedavra.
Dang it.
Yeah.
We practiced this. Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited for whoever's Patronus is a blue whale, because you can just sit in the Patronus
Right,
and be
right.
protected.
It protects like everyone in, you know, a half-mile radius.
Yeah. That's how Moses did it. Good old biblical reference during a Harry Potter podcast. Here we go. Next section.
Is there I know we have to move on to other things, but is there a precedent for evil characters ever? Oh, yeah, Umbridge can make her Patronus, so I imagine Voldemort could probably make one
Yeah,
too.
because she's so happy to be so cruel. And, like, Snape is still fairly evil, and his doe Patronus is possible.
Yes. But Joe did say that Snape is the only Death Eater who can cast one.
Well, it feels like Bellatrix Lestrange really should be able to.
Because she always seems to be having a good time.
She's wildly happy enough the entire time, and she's an extremely talented witch.
I think a bunch of the Death Eaters could if they, like, put their minds to it, just like Umbridge does. I think just none of them ever bothered learning how because they didn't see the value.
Well, and you would think that after a bunch of them get stuck in Azkaban, and they're like, you know, even though the Dementors are on our side, maybe we should learn to defend ourselves from them. But, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
But maybe it's just because they have been in Azkaban that the Dementors lost their effect on them.
Sirius is the only one that was able to get away from their effect. I think if they'd lost their effect on them, Bellatrix would have been out of Azkaban a lot earlier.
Yeah, I don't think the Dementors get any less effective with time.
We are on chapter 3.
Yeah, we've not been on chapter 3 for a lot of this.
We should get back to chapter 3. So we go to the rock.
We go to the rock.
I mean, Irvin touched upon this already with his quote from Pottermore or whatever it's called these days.
Pottermore. I'm sorry. It will forever be Pottermore. Like, I had the debate with my publisher because I cited Pottermore in my Dumbledore book, and they're like, should we call it, like, whatever it's called now? I was like, no. It was from Pottermore. Like, people get it.
Yeah. But yeah, I only put in some research here about witch trials and the swimming test, which I'm sure most people will know what that is. But it's essentially when back in the Middle Ages, the fun times of history for everyone, they thought the one true test to determine if someone is a witch is like, hey, let's like throw them into water, and if they float, then they're witches, and then we'll kill them. And if they drown, then they weren't witches, but they're already dead. So that's sort of why it was believed that water rejected servants of the devil, and that if a suspected person floated and refused to sink, when placed in water, it was proof of guilt. So that's a fun little something I found on the internet, and I'm gonna put the link in our on our website. But also, like, that website said the last reported swimming in like England was in 1825, which is like way too late.
That's not even 200 years ago.
Yeah, it's way too recent.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, like Griselda Marchbanks was alive for that.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yikes
Indeed.
So is Great Aunt Tessie. What? Who?
So, on a cheerier note, I think we should get back to Sassy Harry, because he is so very sassy in this chapter.
He is.
Like, early on, there's his amazing comeback to Dudley, right? Where Dudley says that they shove people's heads in toilets in Smeltings, and does Harry want to practice? And Harry's like, no thanks. The poor toilets never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick.
So like, rude.
Damn!
Yeah.
But where is he learning this stuff? You know, I can't imagine he's able to watch TV or read whatever scraps he can find.
He's James's son. That's in his blood. It's genetic.
So nature.
Brain's just wired for it.
That's what we're seeing. It's all about nature.
Yeah.
Author.
Yep.
Okay.
100%.
But actually, later on in the chapter, in at the hut on the rock, we get an example of Harry's black humor, where, like, you know, when the wind is howling and everything, Harry hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, though he might be warmer if it did. Which, I mean, first of all,
so sad. I
never fail to crack up when I read that line. Like, that's very funny. But actually, it reminded me of an amazing essay from back in the day by Gowdy over at the Leaky Cauldron Scribulus Project, which...
Yeah, this was an excellent essay.
Right? It was written pre-Deathly Hallows, but talking about Harry and Ginny and, like, why they're such a great pair. And he talks a lot about Harry's humor, especially as seen in this chapter, and how that's one of the reasons he and Ginny, like, are such a good pair together. Like, honestly, I think this essay is genuinely, like, the best case for Harry and Ginny as a couple I've ever read.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just gonna do 2 quick excerpts from the essay. Harry uses his dark sense of humor as a defense to help him emotionally survive his own miserable circumstances. He acknowledges his desire for humor as one of his most basic needs after the Triwizard Tournament. Facing the return of Voldemort on the verge of war, he gives his winnings to the twins to use as a startup for their joke shop. And, like, I love that. I love how, you know, part of it is, like, it's fun to have a fun and sassy narrator, and we're all just like, haha, he's funny. But I think it very much is, like, a coping mechanism for him. Sort of whenever, like, life is extra shitty, like when he's on the floor of the hut on the rock, like, yeah, humor is his refuge.
Yeah, I can see that.
Fascinating.
And then the essay also talks about the line with the toilet, where it's talking about how both Harry and Ginny use humor to lash out at people. So the essay says, it's very clear that Ginny is more than willing to use humor as a deadly part of her arsenal when she's angry. It should be noted, however, that this aspect of Ginny's personality is actually very similar to Harry's own behavior. Mm-hmm. He's always used his sense of humor against those with whom he's angry with or does not like. The most obvious example is Dudley, and then talking about that line about the toilet and Dudley's head. A few years later, Harry replies when Dudley is talking about beating up a 10-year-old, yeah, did he say you look like a pig that's been taught to walk on its hind legs? Because that's not cheek, Dud, that's true. Which, again, very funny, like, you know, love those lines. Unable to use magic during the summer, Harry easily resorts to his oldest survival mechanism to deal with the enormous bully Dudley. So yeah, I do think Harry learned, like, sort of, he had no other way of defending against Dudley, right? Dudley has every possible advantage over him, but, like, his humor and his wit is, you know, like, Dudley may not even understand, like, Harry's, you know, tiny victory in those moments, but at least Harry's like, haha, I amuse myself.
Yeah, for real.
I think it's quite common in, like, people who've lived through a lot of drama in their life that they use humor as a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Without having any, like, real backup on this. It's more sort of something I perceive.
Yeah. Well, and, like, we talked about, right, how awful Harry's upbringing has been, and, like, you know, no, you've been wondering, like, you know, how on earth did he manage to turn out as he did? And I love that there are these, like, little bits in the books where, like, you know, if you dive below the surface, you do see, like, Harry's traumatic childhood sort of rearing its head.
Mm-hmm. We should cut him some slack. For all of book 6, all of the whining.
Yeah. I mean, like, I never minded, like, the caps lock Harry in Order of the Phoenix, because I was like, you know, that makes sense. Like, dude's been through a lot.
Yeah, he's just 5 or 6 years out of the Dursleys. And he's got a dark wizard chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a teacher who doesn't believe him and punish him with writing into his own hand.
Yep. All those things.
And Dumbledore doesn't talk to him.
Not at all. It's rude.
And the only person he can rely on besides Hermione is Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his godfather is whining in that year as well. And then he dies.
Rude.
But yeah, so after Harry's very entertaining inner monologue, the chapter ends just as the clock strikes midnight, and there's a knock on the door. And, okay.
If there ever was a need to say dum dum da.
For real.
I just wanted to ask, and I mean, the answer is because it's good storytelling, but is there, like, a reason we can think of for the melodramatic knock on the door at midnight? Because, like...
It's a kid's book.
Right, from a Doyleist perspective, obviously, all like this happens at midnight. Like, has to be midnight. But I'm wondering if, like, from a Watsonian perspective, if we can make a case for why it had to be at midnight.
I think Hagrid tried to do his best to get there with as little magic as possible and didn't realize how long it was going to take, and so ended up doing it at night.
Ha! Yeah.
Or maybe Hagrid got delayed because he was going to the pub first.
So you think, like, the pub shut down at 11 and then Hagrid's like, oh crap, I gotta get to the hut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, yeah, Hagrid doesn't strike me as, you know, the melodramatic type who would, like, meticulously time his arrival to be exactly at midnight.
Correct.
I always thought that, if we were being silly and trying to think about it, I was like, maybe it's like there's a hard deadline once he's 11. So like once he's turned 11, like, no, we need an answer whether he's going to Hogwarts. Like,
Yeah, for real.
that quill of acceptance or whatever is like, no, we're going to need an answer by midnight. So chop, chop.
And that's very possible.
Yeah.
He had to get the cake.
Oh, that's true. That's true. He also got held up getting cake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably the real reason. Hagrid was like, oh, you want me to do this on his birthday? Well, first then I'll have to bake a cake.
Listen, getting cake is always a good excuse for being late.
I'm fairly certain that Hagrid he bought this one. Just so we're all very clear.
Yes.
Because it's edible for Harry, and the untidy scrawl on top feels like Hagrid's like, oh shoot, I should have written happy birthday, Harry, but this one is his only edible piece of baking.
Yes, I agree. Yes, Hagrid was buying a cake, which is still a very valid excuse for tardiness.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, don't you have to order cake in bakeries ahead of time? They usually don't have them just lying around.
Sometimes they have them lying around if you go early enough.
Yeah, I mean,
So maybe he...
considering how late he in general is, it sounds more like it was like 5 p.m. and he was like, oh, can I have a cake?
Well, he might have taken a port key to the States where it's the morning, grabbed a cake there, then taken a port key back and realized he was back in Scotland and needed to make it to essentially Azkaban, and then took a thestral to the water, but then the thestral was like, I'm not crossing the ocean, so then he had to get into this rowboat.
So do we think Dumbledore broke international port key law just for a cake? Is what you're saying?
100%.
Zero debate there.
Oh, do you know what? If you told me ahead of this recording that we're going to talk about all of this extra stuff from chapter 3, I would have never believed you.
Yeah, no, we go where the night takes us.
We've talked about some very deep stuff.
So the third broomstick is for all those long walks that we take.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this happens whenever you, go to the pub with your friends,
Yeah,
Everyone's
that's
like,
true.
so, topic X. And then, 3 hours later, they're like, well, how did we get on this?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. How did we get on what happens when two Animagus procreate in the animal form?
And you should have a house elf episode too.
Listen, Mrs. Figg has all of these
I'm going to
cats.
blame Noah. You know what? For those conversations, I'm always going to blame Noah.
I love bringing it into weird territory. So,
Which we love.
yes.
Do you still run the Mandrake Liberation Front?
I do. I mean, I run it in spirit. I can't say that I've done anything with it lately. But I do, there's a writing project that I have in mind, which is kind of like fan fiction, where I would love to bring MILF back. Actually, yeah.
Well, that sounds very
That'd be
interesting.
sweet.
Also, I just love that you call it MILF.
With no shame. It's lovely.
Yes.
It just works. It fits.
Don't Google that, kids. MLF, not MILF.
Yeah, you know what? Kids, just don't Google it. You know what? We will provide all the links you need to follow. It's fine. It's fine.
It is international.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
MILF.
So it's the full acronym? Yeah.
Mandrake Liberation Front.
We're expanding all the time. They're sentient.
We should put pins on the website.
Well,
Everyone can order some Mandrake Liberation Front pins.
well, in France, it would be the other way around because they always swap the acronyms around. So it would be
Right.
FLM.
Right. It would be the front of liberation of international mandrakes.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Well, Noah, thank you so much for visiting us at the Three Broomsticks. As always, it has been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Noah. This is
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Yeah.
This is really fun, and I'd love to come back again sometime.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Other than your MILFs, is there anything else you want to plug or anywhere listeners can follow you?
Oh yeah. So my personal Instagram is NoahDude28, and I perform around Brooklyn a lot these days, just doing a lot of original music and a little bit of wizard rock. I do some songs occasionally, but most important to me right now is my Pokemon meme page on Instagram. That really absorbs most of my time, and it's called Pokebabble, and it's just I just make the Pokemon characters from Generations 1 and 2 say really weird things, and I post it. So you can follow me on Pokebabble too.
Love it.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. And the listeners, talking of Wizard Rock, it's time to see what's playing at the pub's jukebox. So for this chapter, there's an amazing Wizard Rock song called Letters from No One, from Witherwings, which is just like a really sweet song about like Harry and sort of, you know, how hopeless it was for him. And then like how exciting it was when like finally someone wrote to him and cared. So yeah, it's very, very sweet. Everyone go listen to Letters from No One.
Harry's life was routine, he was his family's slave. He was told to get the mail and everything changed. The first of many letters addressed to him. For a golden moment his life wasn't so grim, but his uncle was determined to keep them away. But more letters came, once 40 in one day. They even came hidden in some eggs. Vernon treated them like they were the plague, but he was told it was a letter from no one, because no one would write to him. But a little voice inside said this was wrong. This was wrong.
If you'd like to head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks, that's with the number 3, to sign up, we are offering bonus content, chats with hosts, and on-episode shoutouts to our Patreons. There's a lot of administrative expensive, websites, hosting fees, and so on. You know, all of that's involved in keeping the lights on at 3 Broomsticks so we can give you this wonderful content. We would really appreciate your help in supporting this podcast so we can talk about Harry Potter for a long time to come. And if you like our show, don't forget to tell your friends. Word of mouth helps us hugely, and we always love to see these reviews, these ratings, all of it. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, over on Patreon, we released last week a fun bit where all of us talk about the theme parks in, you know, the Wizarding World down in Orlando, because I was recently there, and, like, you know, it's really cool, and I love talking about the theme park, like, with the hardcore fans who are like, okay, so, like, this thing, and that thing, and this bit of minutia. So, yeah, that's over on Patreon.
Excellent.
And if you want to follow us, if you're not following us yet on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, I'm going to tell you how you can do that, but we're also going to link all of them because it's slightly confusing with the spellings of the different ones. But if you're primed to type in your into search bar right now, it's @3broompod on Twitter, so without an S, so @3broompod, everything spelled out. @3broomsticks podcast on Instagram, @3broomstickspod on Facebook. And now the one where it's different, the email, it's 3broomstickspod@gmail.com, and this is where it's the number 3. And our website is 3broomstickspod.com, and this is where you find all of our episodes, the comments, where we engage with you guys, when you let us know what you think, bring up all your amazing thoughts that we forgot to talk about. So please go visit the website.
Provide us with the flowchart of, like, you know, when Animagus procreate, what happens when, like, all that. Like, we need you to chime in on that topic.
Yeah. So let us know our thoughts, and this is also, again, where you will find all the links to the essays and other sources that we talked about.
And next time we meet at the 3 Broomsticks, we're going to be discussing the parallels between the villains of Half-Blood Prince and the villains of Joe's latest Cormoran Strike book, Ink Black Heart. It's really, really cool. We're going to have some Cormoran Strike experts as our guests. I can't wait to record it, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. And with that, I've been Irvin.
I'm Oriel.
I'm Sam. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time in the 3 Broomsticks. Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The 3 Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by the Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Wait, you got a tattoo?
Yeah, I've got 3. I guess one of them turned into a bigger one, but yeah, I do. I got one on my right arm and one that's taking up pretty much my entire from the elbow to the shoulder.
When are we getting 3 broomsticks to do?
That sounds great.
After 3 years.
After 3 years. That sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? No, we're just going to add a broomstick for every year we have the podcast going.
That's hilarious.
But yeah. Sam, what are your tattoos of?
I've got a sort of zhuzhed up hawk and hummingbird on my right arm. And a black and white tattoo of stories that include my Gryffindor sword tattoo, but also Howl's Moving Castle and the Jedi emblem, as well as a bunch of heather.
Cool.
Yeah, they're neat.
Yeah. Noah, you're muted if you're here.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. Guess he's not.
No, I am. Look. I'm sorry. Why isn't this working?
Yeah.
I'm here. Sorry. I've been here the whole time. I
great.
couldn't get it off mute.
Okay.
Hey!
Hey.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, now I'm glad we didn't say anything nasty about you.
How could you?
Rude.